Welcome to Wander Paws Down Under. I'm Dan.
I'm Anita.
And together we're travelling around Australia with our dog Wally, our cat Paprika, our off-road caravan, and our trusty Toyota Hilux.
And we're here to bring you some pet travelling tips on the road. And today we've got a different kind of episode again. We're going to do some pet travel tips. And we might look like we're in a bit of a different setting today because we're actually house sitting. So we don't only have one dog, we have two dogs.
Hang on, you said house sitting, not pet sitting. So did the pets come with the house, or did we find two other pets?
House and pet sitting. So we have two dogs and two cats. So if you do see us get interrupted by a strange dog or a strange cat, then they don't look like Wally or Paprika. You will have to be introduced at this time. So
Absolutely, and I'm sure we can record an episode on how we actually make this work with another dog and another cat, because you know, cats don't really get along that well together, and dogs can be okay, like in this case, but yeah definitely an interesting adjustment for us.
We just like to really challenge ourselves and learn new things, so here we go. But today, look, we are looking at bringing you just 5 easy pet traveling tips, things that we've learned after 6 months of being on the road. And look, our first episode where we started to give some tips is changed probably quite a little bit. Some things are the same, some things are different, but these are our top picks for, you know, what you kind of have to know either before you leave for your pet travels, or maybe things that you might not have thought of for during.
And before you watch any further, if you haven't already, please subscribe and turn on the notifications. We'd love to have more people tuning in. And
Absolutely.
for those of you that support us on a regular basis, or even sometimes, thank you so much for all the love and all the comments that you show us on each video. We really appreciate it, and we definitely will endeavour to, you know, get better and better.
Absolutely.
So I guess before we delve into our top 5 pet travelling tips, I just want everybody to know that if you are considering travelling with your pets, it is absolutely possible to do it comfortably in Australia and see pretty much everything you want to see.
It is, yeah, 100%.
Whether you're travelling with a dog, a cat, a pig, a goat, well, maybe not the pig and the goat, but if you're travelling with pets, yes, you will have to make a few compromises along the way, but we're here to tell you exactly how we've been able to do it, or at least the top 5 ways in which we're able to do it, and hopefully inspire you to take that next step, because it is a big step. Whether you're going on a big or a small journey, it's going to transform your relationship with your little fur baby.
And I guess it really does start with our number 1 tip, which is to train your pets before you leave. Now, what does that mean? Because training your pets, I guess it can mean a number of things depending on where your pets are at and what you plan to do for your journey. Number 1, if your dog or your cat isn't, you know, trained at all for the toilet, things like that, you want to make sure that kind of stuff is done. Your basic commands, all of that. But all of that aside, like specifically for this trip, what do we mean by training the pets, Dan?
Well, in our case, we were pretty blessed because Wally, from a very early age, started coming with us on camping trips.
Yeah.
So out of Melbourne, we'd take him on weekend trips and get him used to the tent and get him used to basically outdoor life. So for Wally, it wasn't really a big stretch to go and do it in a caravan. In fact, he was probably relieved because he, you know, got a little splice of luxury thrown in. But look, that being said, you know, going away for, say, a year like what we are at the moment versus a weekend trip is a vastly different undertaking. So you're going to have to think about additional things like the quality of your gear, about how your pet reacts to certain situations on a prolonged basis. So just because they might be okay for a couple of days doesn't mean that they'll be cool, you know, doing it for a year. So Wally always used to end up coming home very relieved, very tired, especially after a weekend camping trip. I think he was just happy to be back home, but we haven't actually gone back home ever since we left. And for Wally in particular, that's been an adjustment. He's had to learn how to actually switch off, which is a really big thing for Groodles because they're always high energy, they're always ready to go. Wally is no different, and you know, for the first few days of our camps, of our trip, he just wouldn't stop.
Yeah, and he was kind of like, you know, a toddler. Like he would keep going and going and going until he was burnt out. And then he wasn't sleeping, you know, he was staying up with us, wanting to come outside with the fire. And I guess there's a little bit of responsibility on you as a pet owner as well to actually take time to have downtime with your pets, or to leave them and let them just, you know, have time apart from you so that they can relax. Because Wally, you know, being a Groodle again, it's like, if he sees us doing something, he wants to be a part of it. And if your dog is like that, they will get worn out, they will get exhausted. So training your pet to I guess have some alone time is a big thing.
Yep.
Training your pet with their hardware, things that they need and use. Like with the cat, we had to pretty much train the cat a million different things.
Yeah.
Like train the cat how to even live in a caravan, train the cat how to go on a journey in the car, train the cat how to sort of test out his new cat bag, his harness. So like these are the kind of things you have to think of. Like, what are you buying for your trip, and have the pets actually use them?
Yep.
Because you don't want to be teaching these things on the road. Like, it's just too much.
Definitely. And that applies not only to gear, but also to things like commands. So
Absolutely.
if you've got a doggo, then make sure you double down if you haven't already on those commands and things like recall,
yeah.
sit. I don't know about shake, but sit, stand.
The toilet is really big
Yeah,
one.
toilet's a
Like
big
I
one.
did say it at the very start and just brushed over, but toilet is actually a huge one because you're going to be traveling days and days and days and hours and hours and hours, and you really want to be able to sort of say, okay, this is when we're stopping. This is when you need to go to the toilet. Now, we learned this
Piss
the
on
hard
command.
way. Yeah, pee on command, poop on command would be even better. With dogs, like Wally was already trained to hold because we would go to work for the whole day and things like that. Paprika was a little bit tougher. We did have multiple accidents with him at the start, and we've both said that we wish we had taken a little bit more time to maybe train, because we have heard of other pet owners that actually train their cats to be able to go to the toilet at the same time as the dog, like when they would stop. So look, these are the kinds of things you don't think about, but will make your life so much easier. Otherwise, you're going to have accidents and you're going to have an unhappy pooch or kitty.
Yeah, definitely. And look, with the cat in particular, cats, by their very nature, they're not creatures that love change, generally speaking. They don't love new environments. They don't love cars. I don't think I've met any cat that loves a car. So you're going to have to be a lot more delicate with your approach with the cat versus with the dog. And for us, that journey actually started about 4 months before we went away.
Yeah.
So as soon as we got our caravan that we're using on this travel, we parked it up in the driveway. We allowed the cat to have a sniff around, go inside, go on top. You know, the cat just became really familiar with the concept of a caravan. He didn't quite know what it was or what it was used for.
Absolutely, yeah.
But he started to get familiar with the structure. And then, what was it, about 3 months before we went away, we actually went to the Murray River in Victoria, a nice secluded off-grid area, no other dogs around, you know, just pure nature bliss. And we brought the cat with us for the first time. So that was a really, really big milestone, because the cat, you know, had been removed from his regular environment. He did a 3-hour car drive in his carrier case. Then he was in a caravan, and he was a champ. I take my hat off. He was a real trooper from the get-go. So we could see potential straight away with the cat, but you need to introduce as early as possible to your gear, try and train them up, and be really patient, and lots of positive rewards and results.
And if you are going to use like cat harnesses and bags, like get the cat used to it, and make sure that you've done that. And I guess that goes into the second point anyway, plan ahead. So our second point was plan ahead, and that really is quite a broad topic. So we'll be as quick as we can, but like with good nuggets, I'm hoping. Want to start?
Yeah, so, I mean, we're the sort of people that the trip that we're doing, it doesn't have a whole lot of structure. We know the general direction in which we're moving around Australia, but we don't necessarily know even where we'll be sleeping that night, let alone, you know, a month from now. That being said, although we love to roll like that, and we have rolled like that for pretty much the vast majority of this trip, you do need to plan ahead if you're traveling with pets, because not every venue, not every place that you're going to go is going to allow them.
Absolutely. And look, it's kind of the dream to be able to wing it, but I guess when you have pets, you just have to take a little bit of extra, you know, steps of planning. It doesn't mean that you can't wing it at times. But yeah, like you kind of just want to have at least a bit of a list, or we use WikiCamps quite regularly, of like your dog friendly options. So if you do get stuck in a random sort of area, that you do find somewhere you can stay. So that's very important. Planning ahead for the climate is a funny one, because we didn't even think about that, to be honest. Like we did not think about how the climate
we just wanted
would
to get out of the cold of Victoria.
Yeah, totally. And we didn't even think about how the climate would affect how we could travel with our pets. And that means in Australia, there is just so many different climates. I think we've been through, like every single, you know, place that we've been to, it feels like has a completely different.
Lots of lovely combinations.
Yeah, like you get the humidity, you get dry heat, you get wet, you get cold, you get icy. So why does that affect the pets so much? It affects them if you are using options like trying to leave them in the caravan for certain times when you go out to maybe go for a hike or go for, adventure into a national park and things like this. That's where climate can become a big thing. It can also become a big thing if you've got activities planned with your pets and you didn't think about, oh, well, my dog's from Victoria and I'm in, far north Queensland or Darwin and it's humid and they've never experienced this before, and you're trying to push them for that 10-kilometre walk that you might do back in Victoria, which we have learned the hard way that's just not going to work. That's not going to work for your pets. The cat hates thunderstorms, as an example. Like, we can't leave the cat all on his own in a thunderstorm because, to be honest, it's just cruel. Like, it's not nice. So, these are things you don't really think about, climate, weather. But when you have a pet, talking about
Speaking
thunderstorm,
of thunder.
better check where the cat is. But, like, these are things that, like, if you're traveling just you two, I mean, it does affect you still, but it is, a little bit more serious when you leave a pet in a vehicle or in a caravan, or you're taking them on walks and adventures. Even the cat in the backpack, you just can't do that on a hot day.
Yeah, definitely. And, if you've got a dog like Wally where they need to be shaved every now and again, that also forms part of your consideration. Yeah. So when we left Melbourne, Wally was quite closely shaved, so he didn't really love the cold too much. But once we got to a warmer climate, he was a lot happier. But then as his fur grew, particularly as we got closer to Exmouth, he got quite shaggy, and Exmouth gets very hot. So he started to transform into a bothered, unhappy at times dog that was a little bit more lethargic, and you just
and it's not that easy to get a grooming booking in remote towns, and to if you don't do your grooming yourself, you have to consider that as well.
We'll go to a sheep station. So climate's a big one. Also, if you have an animal that does sheds, keep in mind that their shedding cycle is going to be altered based on where you're traveling to. So typically a lot of double coat breeds will shed around spring once winter's gone, but it can really mess up your animal's sense of where they are if you're moving into different climates. So that's not to say it shouldn't really affect your trip, but just be prepared for a lot more hair, particularly in areas where you wouldn't expect it or times that you wouldn't expect it. What else?
There's
Pet
also
sitters?
Oh yeah, true. Pet sitters, like planning ahead with that, because if you are going to regions in peak seasons, pet sitters can be booked out. Cat and dog, accommodations can be booked out. So if that is something that you're super duper relying on, you might need to think ahead a little bit more. So do think about the places that you're going to, like say the Whitsundays is a very popular destination. If you're going there, you're probably going to want to make sure that you've arranged pet sitting before you arrive. Exmouth is another big one. So just keeping in mind, if it's a popular tourist destination, the time of the year you're there, whether it's school holidays, things like that, it's going to affect the, the availability of these places. So sometimes you do have to book ahead.
And you don't want to miss out. You don't want to miss out on going to some amazing national parks or other sights and sounds just because you haven't planned ahead or haven't done so.
Yeah. Oh, Wally.
Wally. Wally.
Hazard.
Good boy. Okay. That's
His tail's blocking, I think. All right. Come on, Wally, out of there. Good boy. Get out of there. Good boy. He wants to play.
Yeah, pet-friendly accommodation. I mean, we touched on it before, but so you mentioned Wikicamps. That's a really great resource because you can filter the Wikicamps app by dog-friendly, and that allows you to see...
to go to the toilet.
You go.
Keep going.
And that allows you to see basically where you're allowed to bring the dog or the cat and where you aren't. So very important application for both accommodation and also sites to visit. Another key one that we use is HipCamp. HipCamp, does that also have the same filter? Like it has a dog-friendly filter?
It has a pet-friendly filter, yeah. Wally, sorry guys. It does have a pet-friendly filter, and a lot of the HipCamps being like farms and like other people's properties, usually they've got a little bit more land, so you might actually have quite a bit of success with hip camp, and also sometimes they're really good for if you're in a national park region. The hip camps are usually, like we found in the Daintree was a really good one. Like you can't take pets into the Daintree, but these people lived in the,
just on the edge of the forest.
on the side of the Daintree, so it's still Daintree forest, but not the national park part. So we're actually able to go through the rainforest, see waterfalls, but they were able to stay with us on the non-national park side. So I think depending on obviously where you are and what's going on, pet-friendly hip camps are quite a good option. And you can kind of search them by the region that you're in.
I think probably another important category of planning ahead is the safety aspect.
Big time.
If you haven't seen, we've done a full episode on 1080 baiting, which is a really, really important consideration when you're traveling around Australia with your pet. Make sure you check that one out. It's only about 20 minutes long, but it could actually save your pet's life. So you've got 1080 baiting, you've got other animals to worry about, you've got insects, you've got viruses and parasites. There's all sorts of stuff out there that could potentially ruin your trip. So again, do you want to let her in? Again, the risk is relative, and chances are something bad probably won't happen, but you should try and mitigate your risk as much as you can. So with 1080 baiting, we would always plan ahead and make sure we know what areas are 1080 baited, whether that's from a government website or speaking to locals or the accommodation venue.
And knowing your region for ticks is a big one, because I think the northern parts of Australia, from North WA across to
right through Queensland.
Well, actually, it's a bigger region than that. So definitely look up where there's paralysis ticks, couple of different tick-borne diseases. So we actually had to double down on tick treatments and stuff.
Yeah, so we had an oral tick treatment and one that we put on the skin as well.
And some people use the tick collars, and so definitely speak with your vet regarding that. That's something that you have to plan ahead, making sure that they might have whatever shots and stuff they need. If they're going to be staying in kennels, that's another one. Look, insects, viruses, 1080 baiting, any of these little things can harm your babies, and they will set your trip short or, possibly cause injury or illness to your babies. So look, plan ahead. Think of everything. Like, it's like having kids, or, when you've got your animals, it's the same thing. Like, you just really need to think of nearly any situation that you can imagine would happen, and then just kind of be as much prepared as you can be. You don't have to be crazy, you don't have to be worried too much, but unfortunately ticks were a big one, and a lot of locals had warned us about those.
And one good example of how we mitigated that risk, obviously we've just mentioned we did the double tick treatment, but after every walk outside we would both check Wally to make sure that he was free of ticks. Same with Paprika if he was outside, although that did get fun because cats don't like to be held down.
That's fun.
But it's all about managing that risk, and touch wood, we've been absolutely fine for the 6-7 months we've been on the road.
Absolutely.
And you just need to continue staying vigilant as well as planning. So follow through on the execution rather than just do the planning.
And I guess that's like part of the journey, is like that you do kind of research and sort of know what you have to consider as an option. And you know what, that is actually coming to the next point, like knowing your nearest vet. If you're going to be traveling in remote parts of Australia, there are places where a vet only visits once a month or things like this. So if any of these things do go wrong, you don't have anywhere that you can possibly, take your babies if there's an injury or illness. So planning where your nearest vet is on our list, and it's number 3, and it's number 3 for a reason. So
I mean, the other dog's just licking.
Oh my gosh, there's just dogs everywhere, guys. There is dogs everywhere.
This is Sunny. Hello, Sunny.
There is doggies everywhere. There is attention needed everywhere. Seriously.
Sunny, I'm a little bit busy at the moment. Just please sit.
And there's thunder, so they're both like super
chill,
anxious and like, what's going on? They're so sweet though. Here we go, another hazard.
All right, Sunny.
Anyway, so knowing your nearest vet, that's very important for rural parts of Australia. You might even you might even think that we're going. Oops, sorry, baby. We might even think that we're going to a major town. It's not going to be a problem. But then we found out that the vets only actually visit once every month or something like that. So definitely plan that. Know the kilometres to the vets. Oh gosh.
It's just,
Now they're
it's
having
just
it out,
kicking off.
guys.
And look, hand in hand with vets does come. Oi!
And we thought that living on the road was hard. Come on, guys.
Hey!
Hey, 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 hey.
Ollie, that's it. Out.
Take a rest. Outside, baby. Sunny.
Outside.
So, bringing us again to number 3, knowing your nearest vet. It's important in remote parts of Australia, but sometimes you might even think that you're going to a major town and there's going to be a vet, but sometimes those vets only actually visit, intermittently, whether it's monthly or, our vet actually was the ones to tell us that the Alice Springs vets aren't, and different places aren't actually there full time all the time, or things like this. So, look up where the nearest vets are. Make sure that you have an idea, because if something does happen to your pooch or your kitty, you do want to sort of have the options of knowing what you can do in an emergency scenario. I guess these days we're lucky as well that we've got, on-call nurses and stuff like this, but maybe that's something that you need to also consider.
Yep. Which actually goes hand in hand with pet insurance. Now, I'm sure many of you will have insurance, but if you're traveling with your pets around Australia, I think it is an absolute imperative.
Definitely.
Because you do a lot of the time have access to nurses on call, so if something happens in a remote area, it might be the difference between saving their life.
Yep.
But B, look, you are inherently taking a bigger risk by traveling around the country with your pet.
Absolutely.
You're exposing them to situations that they're not used to, other animals, environments that you're not used to that you may not be knowledgeable about.
Yeah.
So the risk factors are increased.
Yeah.
And if you have insurance, it just gives you that extra peace of mind that if the proverbial does hit the fan, you're covered. And this was illustrated very well with an operation that Paprika had to have.
Yeah.
I think it was about 10,000 Ks into our travels in Geraldton.
Yeah.
So Paprika started getting, quite sore teeth and bad symptoms, and we ended up taking him to a vet, and he had 2 extractions. So probably not the ideal journey for him at that stage.
And especially when you've planned financially your budget, and that's going to eat into your budget. We were looking at quite a substantial amount of money, and thankfully we got a huge portion of that back.
Yeah.
So if you are looking for vet insurance and pet insurance, you can even just put a comment about it in the comments. So and literally we can just give you a recommendation of what we've used in the past. I think we've had a couple of different policies, but so it is definitely something you should talk about with someone in insurance and just get it done. Honestly, it's just not worth it.
It's an absolute must.
Another thing with your knowing, I think we didn't mention knowing your tick and flea treatments cycles. So we've learned as well on the tick and flea treatments, some tick and flea treatments for the cat, the ticks were only for 10 weeks and the treatments were for 3 months. So things like that you have to keep an eye out for, because you might actually not be protecting your pet over the full scope of when you might see a 3-month packet and it's going to last for 3 months, but if you didn't look at the actual packaging behind, you might not realize that the cat is actually not protected for the full 3 months for ticks. So things like that, you got to double check it. Speak to your vet before you go. Actually, that's a good sort of option as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it also includes, using different brands will have different types of things that they protect against. Some brands are more comprehensive than others, and part of the reason why we had to have 2 separate treatments for Wally was because one brand was fantastic, say flea treatments, tick treatments, but it didn't cover some of the parasites that are further up north.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think as much as knowing your nearest vet, it also goes hand in hand with speaking to your vet before you leave, which is plan ahead and everything else. So those points kind of join in together. Number 4 point is getting the gear, and getting the right gear before you leave. Because I think we had a couple of dud options, of things that we bought originally, thinking
both
they
for
would
the
work
dog and the cat.
Thinking that they're going to work, but they just weren't practical. Should
we? Let's maybe separate it out by dog and cat, so that people don't get confused. But look, we've got a bit of a list that we've conjured up as to the must-haves in terms of dog gear.
Yeah.
So in no particular order, we'll just run through it really quickly. So first one is a dog muzzle.
Yeah.
And whether your dog is the nicest, peachiest dog in the world or a vicious animal of a thing, it doesn't matter. It's not actually to do with whether they can bite or not. Having a muzzle is all to do with 1080 baiting. So I've mentioned before that we've got a full episode on 1080 baiting, so you can have a look in more detail about what that is and why muzzle is super important and your best line of defense. But absolutely must have, particularly if you're traveling north of Victoria or New South Wales or South Australia and West, you must have a muzzle and the right type of muzzle.
And the muzzles actually, I realise, is a must for ferry journeys to Magnetic Island and some other ferries. So it might be something that you actually need for transport as well.
Yep.
Or you could be in a situation, where it's needed for other things, but in our case, it was used for 1080 baiting. Another thing is having some sort of dog harness. If you don't already have it, I would suggest getting something that, is actually heavy duty, because you're going to be in all different kinds of weather. I don't think, even if you think you can handle your dog on a, normal collar, I would still get a harness, because there is going to be a lot of new things that your dog's going to, get introduced to. And I'm assuming that you don't live on a farm already, and you might, your dog might not have ever seen a cow or a bull or a goat
horse.
or a camel or, a horse. Yeah, like all of the different things. So that's a good thing to have.
Did you mention donkey?
Yeah, and a donkey. He's seen a donkey now too. Kangaroos, like wallabies, all kinds of things. So you just don't know, or even other dogs and things like that. So you just don't know how they're going to react being in a new environment and a changing environment. So, one day they're here, one day they're there. Like they're not in their stable sort of routine. So your dog, who you think might act a little bit different, get a harness. It's the smartest thing you'll do.
Yep. Short lead and a long lead.
Yeah.
So short lead, obviously, if you're going for walks, inevitably a lot of the places where you're visiting the dog, although they may be allowed, they'll have to be on a leash.
Yeah.
So you may want to consider a short leash for those sort of places, and also to protect against 1080 poisoning.
Yeah, and that's what I was about to say, for walking in hazardous areas.
Yep. We've also found that having a long lead, or like a retractable long lead, has been really, really beneficial in our travels as well. For areas that are more lower risk, so say the beach, if they still need to be on a leash at a beach.
They still have to be on leash,
Yep, they can go for a quick swim. But also you can tie up a long lead at your campsite so that your dog has a little bit of freedom to roam, but can't get himself into a sticky situation.
Exactly, and especially like if you're on a property like a hip camp, you don't want to have to constantly be like worrying about where your dog is. If your dog, is used to wandering around and things like that, that's fine. But, it's better to have them, attached, because then you're not thinking about them. You can go inside the caravan, you can go and do things, and, you're fine.
Yep.
So it definitely was a big tick for us when we decided to do that. But like Dan said, also like a long lead, there are places that feel like an off-leash place, but you're not allowed to have the dog off-leash. So if you want them to have a little bit of freedom, it's definitely the best option.
Yep, definitely. Dog seat cover.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, so we
That's
actually we actually have two of them in place. So we've got neoprene seat covers across the whole car. So that's just standard seat covers. They've been really effective in keeping majority of sand and water away from our seats underneath.
Spillages.
But in the back seat, we've popped up a photo. It's not looking in the best shape now because it's been around for 4 years, but it shows the quality. But that's a seat cover. So it allows the dog to not fall in between the seats and gives him a nice stable platform, and also allows our cat to also, have his carrier put in place.
If you've got a big dog, it's a must because it just gives you some extra space and he can't fall off. So.
Yep, and it protects your seats and whatever else.
And it's got some
underneath.
handy pockets and stuff.
Yep. So definitely a must. We just got ours from Amazon. You can find them all over the place. Amazon, eBay, pet shops. I think it's all much of a muchness. They'll degrade over time. But ours is 4 years old from Amazon and it's done pretty well.
Yeah.
What else? Doggy bowl?
Doggy bowls, foldable doggy bowls, like a dog water bottle, whatever you're going to take on your hikes and walks. And being on the road, you're probably going to be out for a number of hours, and just sometimes it's something that you just didn't think of. So what we have is one that just attaches to Wally's harness and it just folds in. So literally, if we know that we're going out for the day, we just attach it to his harness. It doesn't bother him. It's no problem. And you can just fill up the water wherever you need to. It's an easy one.
Yep, water bottle, obviously,
Yeah.
or canister for
Something
the dog.
to carry the water with.
Yeah, so a few times back in the day, we ended up on hikes and went, oh no, we don't actually have enough water for all three of us.
Yeah.
So definitely bring something for your pooch, chuck it in a backpack. Yeah, they can get quite thirsty,
Yeah,
particularly
especially
in the
in
northern
humidity.
regions. Yep.
Yeah. And I think another one is if you're going to be taking your pets on hikes, there are multiple hazards that can affect their little paws. So we actually got Wally booties. Unfortunately, he lost one within the first thingy of the trip, so we have to replace
We've
it.
got three.
But he has neoprene booties. It's a good option for doggies who are very adventurous because Wally has done river crossings and cut his little paws before. There's also muddy surfaces that cause a bit of irritation when they are walking for a long time. You know, it gets really moist under their paws and causes eczema kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then there's leeches and all kinds of nasty little things trying to jump on them. And unfortunately
Prickles.
for them, paws are a very tasty part for a leech
Yep.
to attach to. So that really, they love that big bit of the back.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, it helps protect your little paw, your peach's paws, or it could be a hot environment, hot beach, things like that. Even if it's just to get them down to the beach. It
Yep.
sounds silly, but look, it's definitely not a must, but I think it's definitely if you can afford to put it into your budget, it's actually been really good for us because Wally is really adventurous and he does do some silly things from
Yep.
time to time
Absolutely.
where he doesn't really consider his paws and what's going to happen to them. So yeah.
It's a lesson we sort of learnt once, and that was
Yeah,
enough for
that's
us to
right.
have a few infected paws, and we were just like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Time to get them.
yeah, it's just easier for them.
And, you know, coming hand in hand with managing infections or bites or stings is, in our household, it's known as the dog cream. I think
Dan has a real affection for the dog cream.
I've got a big affinity. So we use Neocord. It's a prescription-only cream, so you can get it from your vet. Just ask for it. It's antiseptic, anesthetic, analgesic, and some other ana. Look, it's a fantastic cream.
Yeah.
Whether your pet has been stung, whether he's got a bite, or whether he's cut his paw and needs to be, you know, after you've
Or
cleaned
whether
it out.
Daniel's got a bite.
Or whether
he's
I've got a
hurt
bite.
his-
I've recommended it to all my mates. I've had people come over to my house. I've given them the dog cream, and everyone's still standing and very healthy.
Gosh.
But
Yeah.
look, that being said, it's a definite must in your toolkit. Something will happen on your travels.
No, it's definitely
inevitable.
a must. Yeah.
You know, they will get bitten by something, and it just helps to get rid of the irritation.
You just reminded me, it is really good to have ear wash as well. So your pooch is going to get wet no matter what. If you've got a Groodle, he's probably going to dig his head into some water surfaces, or he's
Or
going
just
to
dive.
go diving into the ocean, or he's going to go diving into the fresh water. Is the worst one for us. Like, we tend to not get any infections and things like that when he goes in the salt water, but for some reason, fresh water every
Yep.
single time. So you can clear out your doggies. You know the names of the brands.
Yeah, we'll pop them up on the description
Yeah.
and what you can see on the screen.
But you've got the preventative.
Yeah, so it's a preventative ear treatment. Basically after your pooch goes swimming, we just put a squirt in each ear
Yeah.
as fast as possible
And you
after
can get
swimming. You can get them at all major pet
Yeah.
stores or online. They have been a really, really big lifesaver for us because Wally used to go swimming, then get an ear infection, $200 vet visit,
He's got
times
poodle ears.
4 or 5 times a year. It really added up. Whereas this
Yeah.
little bottle, you can get it for like $30 and it lasts for ages, and it just prevents those ear infections from happening.
But as planning ahead in point 2, because we know that Wally is prone to ear infections, we did ask our vet at the time of us leaving to give us his antibiotic. Is it antibiotic? Yeah.
It's a proper antibiotic.
Yeah, like the ear drops that they get when they have an infection. And we did actually end up having to use that at one point in our trip, and we didn't have to go to the vet and, organise that. She was happy to do that because it was a regular occurrence for Wally to get those infections, and we know the signs and we know like when it's, needing to be treated.
Yeah, it was just because they were yeast infections as a result of water. Obviously, be very, very careful, and please don't take this advice too much because your situation might be different, and each ear infection might also be different.
But that's why talking to your vet, like for us, like our vet knows us and our dog, and that's why, again, back to planning ahead and knowing your nearest vet, those are things that you need to organise for yourself. But in our case, it was a lifesaver because we were able to sort out an issue before it became any worse.
Yeah, definitely. And on the topic of creepy crawlies and annoyances
Ugh.
is natural insect repellent.
Yeah.
So this has been another one that Wally, I think at the time, doesn't really appreciate because it stinks and dogs,
Yeah.
have very acute sense of smell. But it has helped prevent, I'm sure, a plethora of insect
And he
bites.
still gets bitten quite a bit from
Yep.
time to time. So on this journey, trust me, the dog gets bitten, and I'm a panic freaking out. Like, so if you can, if you can have a preventative that kind of eases that
Yep.
and stops it from happening, that's great.
Yep, and obviously try and keep it natural. We never put DEET on our dog or
No,
like
we
Aerogard
can't.
or anything like that. I think it's bad
Just
enough
look up
putting
what
it on us.
chemicals.
Yeah.
Like, actually, they've got them at your pet stores.
Yep.
But just look up what chemicals are appropriate for dogs and stuff like that, and what bothers them and what doesn't bother them, or just speak again with your vet or speak with the people at the pet store.
Yep.
But that will help because there's so many insects. They're probably going to be laying outside quite a bit. So there's things that you don't even think about, like ants and other little bugs that don't usually get to your pooch when they're in the city. So it was a big one for us. And
Flea
what
tick
about
treatment.
yeah, so that's we've mentioned it multiple times for a reason. It's
And-
so important, so you got to plan ahead.
Yep, and often it is way cheaper to get, say, 6 months worth of flea and tick treatment than just getting it month to month. So we stocked up pretty well before
Yeah.
we left. That way, when we were in remote areas, we didn't have to worry about trying to find a pet shop or a vet. It was just there all the time. I think we got it as part of the Black Friday sales, and we ended up getting like a whole bundle percentage off. So
That was
yeah,
good.
it's a good one.
Yeah, and so first, like I follow a lot of caravanning with dogs and different things. I've seen a lot of people have portable pet fences, which we didn't plan that, and I think it's a great idea. Yeah, so you can literally say you've got a caravan set up, you can put up a portable fence. People have inflatable fences. They have like the fold down kind of metal fences, all different kinds of options, and they just they just put it around their caravan, and it just helps them to have an extra little space for the dog outside where you don't have to worry about restraining them or things like that. I think that's a really cool idea. I wish it was something that maybe we had thought about at the time, but now we're already in. But that's a good idea for you if your dog's a little bit more likes to be out the front and all that kind of stuff, and wants to be outside with you. Another one is just stocking up on all of your normal things like your poo bags, making sure you've got a good indoor and outdoor dog bed. And I guess the rest is pretty straightforward.
Actually, another one for us with regards to food was Wally's on a specific diet. So it's important that we don't disturb his diet as much as possible because he gets stomach irritation and skin irritation. So that for us involved looking up where the stockists are. So he uses SPD 100, which is like these polony type rolls. And we looked up where the stockists are around Australia and had a bit of a map of where we needed to stock up before we got into remote areas.
Because some places we had to buy like 4 rolls at a time or something like that. So that's part of, again, everything always goes back to plan ahead. But that's its own... Yeah, it's something that you really do have to think about. And I guess the gear for the cat, that's another thing.
Well, start with bringing the cat.
Bring the cat.
That's the hardest bit of all.
Yeah, bringing the cat's hard, but how are you going to bring him?
Well,
with
I guess
harness?
there's multiple ways in which we transport Paprika from place to place. So we've got a harness for him. It's actually, we only have gone through one harness. Or two.
We had an original harness that we bought. We didn't like it because Paprika could actually Houdini his way out of it. So definitely, again, planning ahead, training the pets before you leave so you can find anything that doesn't work for you, because the original harness, if we had tied Paprika up or you let Paprika wander in that, we would have lost him because it took a while for us to realize that he could actually get out of it, because the first few times he didn't try, or he didn't get out of it, but then one time he managed to find a way to slip his little head through and stuff like that. So finding the right harness that they cannot get out of. Cats are flexible. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And
don't get a harness that's made for a Chihuahua, which is I think the first one that we got with. Oh yeah, well, she's about the size of a Chihuahua.
That's it.
He ain't the size of a Chihuahua.
They're different.
And he does not move like a Chihuahua.
Yeah, and we got one that actually has not a retractable, like a reflector light on it, so you can kind of use that to spot the cat if he goes missing or something.
Yeah, you can check out what this looks like in our episode on Mount Gambier. I think that's episode 2 on our channel. So you can check out the differences. We go in a bit more detail there.
Yeah, and we decided to get, instead of a carrier, we got a backpack. So we got him a cat backpack that also is a carrier that is also like a little playpen.
Great decision. Probably
Like-
the best buy we've done.
And
for
it's
the
very
cat.
comfortable.
Yep.
Like, it looks just like a bag. It's not ugly. It's not weird. It's not one of those ones with a little globe that they look through. It's actually really, really nice.
And it's big enough to handle our cat, which is a big cat. Like, he's
Yeah.
almost the size of a Maine Coon.
He's a big cat.
And he can comfortably fit in there. He's 7 kilos, doesn't really sag. Like, he's as happy as a
It's
cat can
lasted
be.
this long.
Yeah.
And again, I think we just got that one from Amazon.
Yeah, it's got really good mesh, so even if the cat tries to claw it, it's been pretty resistant to that.
Yeah.
Definitely couldn't recommend it highly enough.
And like we said, it opens up into a cat run, which is
Yep.
awesome, because if you're at a cafe or like, you know, sitting somewhere and the cat's kind of claustrophobic in a little carrier, you can actually open it out and he's got a little bit more space.
Yeah.
So that was awesome for us, and we have used it for hiking, we have used it just for transport, and we use it for his car carrier as
Yep.
well.
And cafe visits, you know,
Yeah, for
in case we want to
everything.
get some extra attention.
Yeah, pretty much for everything, exactly.
Yeah. Litter tray is another one. And look, obviously, you know, it's a pretty obvious one, but the type of litter tray that you have,
Size of the litter
the
tray.
size, these are considerations that we are way too familiar
Yeah.
about, way too intimately
I think
familiar
we've had
about
3
now.
different litter trays.
We've gone through 3. I think
Yeah.
we've finally got it right. So
Yeah.
look, it's going to depend on the size of your rig and how much space you have. So we don't have a big setup, don't have a big caravan. We tried to go for a small litter tray initially, and it ended up with litter all over our floor.
Yeah, and Paprika is a
Constantly.
big cat, and he tries to clean himself up, but he's just made a mess. So
Yeah.
we also had a like portable, foldable litter tray, which in theory was a really great litter tray. Problem is that being fabric, it did seep through, and we would end up having accidents. So we were like, well, that's stupid. It doesn't work, you know. And then we just literally got him like a very deep litter tray. We couldn't fit one with the roof or anything like that. We ended up getting him a really deep litter tray, much bigger, but we put it into the transporting, like the foldable one that we had
Yep.
previously, so we could actually zip it up. So for transport, no litter comes out of the tray, but we can also open it up
Yep.
when we're stationary, and the cat can go and
Yep.
go to use the bathroom as he likes.
Yeah, the transportable litter tray that have just popped up on the screen. So we got that one from Amazon, and
Yeah,
we got
everything.
the actual plastic one that was from
That
Petstock.
was just from Kmart or Petstock or
Yeah.
something like that. It's just your standard.
So it's a good
litter
combo,
tray.
especially if you plan on having that litter tray in your caravan as you move, or in your camper trailer. You don't want to come back to a caravan
Yeah.
full of litter.
And that puts the next thing, like we actually stocked up on puppy pads as well, because when we were transporting Paprika in his carrier for multiple hours, we were getting accidents and things like that, having to wash the carrier all the time. So what
Yep.
we started doing was, he has like a little bottom of his carrier you can lift up, and just wrapping puppy pad around it, just to kind of buffer that first layer of pee or poo or whatever it might,
Yep.
whatever might have happened. It only happened a couple of times on our whole entire trip where
Which
he's
is pretty
had an accident.
remarkable.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. But we were doing such long journeys, like, so it just gives him, gives you an easier way of cleaning up after the cat if something does happen. So poopy pads, pissy pads. I don't know what they're called, puppy pads.
You can get a bulk pack from Kmart. They're really cheap, but
They're
a
so
really,
cheap.
really good investment.
Yeah, it's good just to have.
Yeah, probably the last 3 for a cat, I'll just fly through them quickly. One is the jingle bells. So quite obviously, get multiple bells, put them on.
Just in case the cat gets out. We've
Yeah.
got wildlife around, guys. You're not allowed to let your cat eat anything.
Yep. Second is a light up collar. So again, if you are planning on giving your cat a little bit of outdoor time like we do, would recommend, and if he does have or she has a tendency to bolt, then
Yeah.
this one could allow you to find them at night if they do bolt. Thankfully,
Yeah.
Paprika hasn't at all. But yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good one if the budget allows. And the last one is, it's actually a funny one because we saw this in action when we were in the Ningaloo region, and that is a mesh enclosure that you can
Yeah.
either put on the side of your car or your camper trailer or your caravan. So when we got to a place called Point Billy, there was a lovely couple that pulled up next to us on the campsite next door, and they had a 17-footer caravan, so just a little bit bigger than ours. And we saw that they had a newborn, they had 2 Dachshunds, obviously they had themselves as well, and then they also had 4 cats. Firstly, I don't know how that's possible to do in a 17-footer.
Yeah.
But that aside, or actually how it's possible to do is with a cat enclosure.
Yeah, so they had like a setup where the cats could actually, there was a doggy door in their caravan setup.
Or a kitty door.
Kitty door, sorry. And it would open up into like a fold up cat enclosure. So they would go to the toilet outside but inside, if that makes sense, like inside the enclosure, outside of the caravan. When you've got multiple cats, that makes so much sense because you don't want to be dealing with cat litter. Something that we didn't think about, something that we didn't plan, but it might be a really good idea if you don't like the litter tray being in the house. When you stop, if you do have a cat door, like you could get that made and then have the enclosure that they had. It's a special type of mesh that they cannot claw through, that cannot be broken and cut. Look, it's kind of like the portable fences I've talked about. It's something that we didn't do, but we've seen and kind of been a bit envious of and wish we had thought of that. So that's another little tip. And that's most of the gear.
And a mesh enclosure, like if you have an annex, then that could double up as an enclosure.
Yeah.
But just be mindful, most
Cats are
annexes on the markets, they don't have a floor that fully encloses it. So we actually had a custom annex made, custom floor made to fit our annex in Melbourne. So that way Velcro's all around the sides. Look, it's not foolproof.
And our cat still finds a way to try and get out of there.
It's not foolproof, but it has avoided needing to
Bolting
supervise him
like
constantly. So, we can see if he's trying to get out and we'll get him out of there or we'll supervise. But
look, now Paprika is already accustomed to the lifestyle. He doesn't bolt, but at the start he was still very unsure, and that was the best thing. So maybe that's actually something we didn't think about, giving you some advice. If you do have an annex and it doesn't have a floor and you're taking pets, whether it's a dog or a cat, I suggest getting the floor made for the annex because honestly, even for your dog, like you can at least just have them indoor, outdoor, and for yourselves. I mean, you don't have to worry about them kind of climbing underneath the annex. You can have them off leash a little bit more.
Also stops snakes and things from coming in if you're fully enclosed.
Spiders still managed to get in, and some sort of midgies always managed to get in, but it was okay.
And for
it's
reference,
pretty good.
That floor cost us about $600 in Melbourne. So if your budget allows, definitely recommend it. For us, it's been an invaluable investment in peace of mind.
And it just depends on your setup. The reason that our setup's a little bit easier for like creepy crawlies to get in is because we've got a pop top. So there's always like a little space that someone can manage to get in.
Something always gets in.
But if you've got a full roof, you'll have completely enclosed area. And that means that you can have your pooch even sleeping outside. So you've got extra room and they're going to be secure.
Yep. Our number 5 pet traveling tip is establish routine.
Oh, it's so important, guys.
So important. Whether that's feeding, whether that's toilet, whether that's walks. And look, it's easier said than done because by the very nature of what you're doing, it's going to be chaotic. You're going to be traveling, you're going to be on the road. It's going to be hard to have a routine for yourself, let alone for your pets. But please, as much as possible, this is a really, really key one that we've found has helped us. Especially
for feeding. Yeah. And this goes mostly for a cat because at the start of our trip, our cat would wake us up as if we were going to work at 5:30 in the morning or something like that, waiting for food, wanting to be fed. And if you're in a 1-bedroom micro unit like you are in your caravan,
smaller than a studio unit.
Yeah, there's no separation. So the cat will wake you up. He will stand on your head. He will meow. He will annoy you. So establishing the routine for the cat, establishing the routine of feeding is definitely the number one thing that we have now really appreciated now that we're further into the trip. So making sure that you feed the cat at relatively a certain time of the day. Look, I know it's hard if you've got plans and you want to go out and do some adventures, but you really do need to get them in the habit of knowing when they're going to be fed because, look, they're going to bugger you around. They're going to annoy the crap out of you.
Yep. Well, one way we've actually gotten around this issue is we've tried to adjust our wake-up cycle to be in tune with when the sun rises.
Which you'll be waking up anyway because the sun will
So we'll actually leave some windows open so that the sunshine can come in and naturally wake us up. And the cat has actually adjusted to not hassle us until he can either see us rousing, which is when the sun comes up, or he's gotten pretty good. He doesn't really annoy us out of cycle anymore.
And think about it. It was hard for us, having no routine. We actually had to establish routine for ourselves because we were going a little bit cuckoo crazy, not knowing what we're doing all the time. And
going
your
from a
pet-
very structured life to
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And your pet's literally known exactly how your day is going to unfold for the last however many years that you've had them. Like whether that goes to work or, goes to the gym, like they know because you're going and coming at certain times and you do it every day, the same sort of routine. So look, it's important to establish that not just for their physical health, but for their mental health.
Yep.
And honestly, you'll have a better experience if your pets are fed at a certain time, if they are walked at least once a day. If you're not going to be taking them out to do your routines, you got to think, well, I'm going to go out and do this for the amount of the day, like when am I going to exercise the dog? So
Yep.
Dan, if we were going to go for a massive hike, of course we don't want to walk the dog, but what we would do is Dan would literally take the dog out, play with the ball with him, really run him tired until he's
mentally
had a really
and
good break.
physically, not to the point of exhaustion, but tired.
No, but give him a good run. The cat, he has a little bit of string. I'll play with him. I'll cuddle him.
He'll get a bit of outside time.
Yeah, give him a bit of outside time because he's going to be like indoors for the next couple of hours while you go and do some activities. So look, getting some sort of routine as best as you possibly can will make your life easier, but it's also really important for the pets because their world is changing all the time.
Yep.
Every time they step out of the caravan, it's new, something different. Like every day is different. So having normality and structure in their home is really what made, I think in particular, Paprika so good on this trip a few months in. Like now we're 6 months in, he is like an experienced traveler. He is adaptable. He doesn't run. He doesn't bolt. And I think it's because of these kind of small little things that we had done to make that sort of a safe home and a really structured environment for him.
Yeah, they're creatures of habit, just like we are. I think this has been one that's allowed us to actually enjoy our trip more and help them enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
Because if they know what's ahead, more or less, or at least if they're used to that pattern, then it will make their transition into this journey a lot easier. And that even goes to things like toilet. So if the dog knows that we're about to go to bed and we ask him to go outside and go to the toilet, he actually goes toilet on command now, which is fantastic. Not so much the cat. But it just allows your day to just be a little bit smoother in all the chaos.
But that's again starting with point one. Sorry, point one is like training your pets before you leave. If your dog doesn't go to the toilet or has a dog door, you've really got to consider this.
Yep.
So letting them out before you go to bed, keeping them in a restricted area while you're sleeping is a good training sort of step before you leave.
Yep.
Because we had a doggy door at home. So Wally could just come and go. So he didn't actually have the routine of toilet time. So that's something that you definitely have to plan.
Yep, absolutely.
And last but not
A bonus.
least...
A bonus.
Oh, yeah, that was 5.
This is a bonus.
Guys, that was 5 points. I think we talked for a while. But there's a bonus. There is a bonus. You want to go for it? You go for it.
Yeah, look, again, if you're going to do a bigger trip or even if you're going to do a small trip but it lasts a few weeks or months, it's a big deal for your pets. It's a big deal for you, but it's especially a big deal for them because there's just so many changes. And just be patient.
Yeah,
be patient and be understanding and come at with a bit of empathy because it's easy to get frustrated at them if they're disobedient or if, for example, they start behaving erratically. But you got to remember, like, for your little fur babies, their whole world's changed. So, it's okay for them to be like that initially. Let them step into it, let them do their thing, but come at it with from a sense of compassion as well.
Yeah.
And that's something that I learnt to switch off, that frustration, because their whole world's changed.
Yeah. And the thing is like you just can't communicate with them. You can't say to them, hey guys, we're not going to go home. We're going to do this. We're going to go travel for Australia. It's going to be really fun and exciting. They have no friggin' idea what the hell is going on. They still probably for the first couple of weeks think that this is just a bit of a holiday and but even still, we don't know the complexity of their brains really, but we know that every single day or every couple of days, their environment is completely changing, like all the time. So you really do have to be patient because you might notice some characteristics or disobedience that they never had before. They might be erratic. They might be reactive. and you'd be thinking, oh, my dog wasn't like this, like he's crazy, and you get angry, you get frustrated because you're stressed out too, because it's a change of environment for you. Like that's where we were all struggling, because I was frustrated because I didn't know what I was doing, he was frustrated because he didn't know what he was doing, and pets are frustrated.
We were burnt out from so many years at work, and there was a whole washing machine of things going on, and
emotions
changes.
Are big, and that your pets pick up on that too. So
which I think comes back to that point of establishing the routine as much as you can, and also planning ahead, having the right gear so that you minimize any frustration. It all ties in.
And training those pets before you go, so that you really feel like they've got, at least the best foundation that they can have before you leave.
Yeah. But look, folks, it is absolutely possible to do with your pets. Coming on this journey with our babies, I'm getting emotional now. Coming on this journey with our babies has been one of the most profoundly amazing experiences of my life. I'm sure it's been the same for them. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse.
But
someone asked the cat what he thinks.
No, but the growth of the cat, I just wish we could show you,
it's been incredible.
I wish we had done a better job of timelining Paprika's journey, because honestly, we had a bit of a disconnection with Paprika before we left, because he wasn't very affectionate with us. We kind of had a little bit of distance between us.
And he's a rescue cat, so he's got a lot of childhood trauma from wherever he came from before us. And
he started off on this trip and we were like, oh no, what have we done to him? He's miserable. He's so unhappy. He didn't want to be there. Wasn't being... we just really felt like we had stressed him out. And now come 6 months to 7 months down the track, this cat is impressing us every single day.
Blossomed.
The love he shows us, the love he shows Wally, the fact that he can adapt to any environment, to new animals.
We'll literally turn up to a campsite, we'll unhitch the caravan, we'll open the door, get Paprika out, we'll let him out, he'll have a sniff around, tails up, ready to go.
He used to be
not
so scared, running
There's
around
no
with
fear.
his tail down.
And he's warm towards children now. He never used to like kids. He doesn't swipe children or bite them anymore. It's been amazing. And it just shows that if you have that patience and compassion and you're planning, you can do it. And the transformation will be amazing. It'll be one of the most amazing things you'll ever do. So, definitely let us know what you thought in the comments. We'd love to hear your feedback, or if you've got any other tips that you'd like to share for others to know about, if you've gone on this journey before. I think it'd be great to have a discussion about it together. But just enjoy it. It's a great step to take if you are considering taking that step.
Absolutely. And if there's anything that needs clarification, please don't fail to message us, and we can try and go into a little bit more detail about some of the things we've spoken about, or some of the items that we've used on our journey.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks. Bye.